Hey everybody, so Jon David had a 5 out of 10 day today. Wasn't the greatest day. Word of the day, which plays into the day, is rapid response team, and rapid response is where they have basically the whole medical team come in. It's kind of like a staff assist over on the ICU side, but over on the step down side, it's an RRT, and then depending on what they decide at the RRT, then you can be sent back to the ICU. Now, we got really close to an RRT today. We basically had like a semi-RRT. Jon David had some really bad withdrawals. For about 6 hours, his heart rate stayed above 160. Quite a lot of that time stayed between 180 and 200. And so wasn't good. For him, that's really not good. I mean, for the average person, it's not good, but like for him, really not good with the hypertrophy or enlarging of his heart. And so they were really concerned. Ended up having kind of that pseudo RRT called, and then they decided to give him more methadone. They had weaned it down to 0.6 from 1 over the last few days, so they went back to 0.7, and they also gave him 4 different boluses of morphine throughout about a 5-hour period. Between those two things, finally got him settled down, but he basically did not really go to sleep from when he woke up this morning at like 8 until about 6 p.m. And so basically I had to spend the whole day kind of holding and consoling Jon David, but also he went into hand gel today. So if you see pictures or videos where he's got the socks on his hands or mittens on his hands, it's because he was scratching his nose and his face, just being, again, irritable, agitated, just kind of bringing it up here. So had to put him in a hand gel to stop him from scratching himself. And last night wasn't the greatest night. I mean, his withdrawal started yesterday, and they were not terrible, but they weren't, wasn't his normal self. And then they just kind of hit full blown today, and we're up there for his worst that he's ever had. He's had 2 other times where it's been like this. However, they resolved a lot faster. Basically gave him a morphine, it settled out. Whereas today, that was the really concerning part, was that, gave him the first morphine and we're kind of expecting it to settle out, and it didn't settle out. And then the second morphine, and didn't settle out. And then the third morphine, and didn't settle out. And that's when we were like, okay, we got to do something different, and kind of had to do the RRT type deal. And they said had he not responded to the methadone and some of the other interventions that we did there when we had a lot of the team in here, then an RRT would have been called, and he probably would have been going back to the ICU. But good news is that the interventions did work. Part of it was dehydration, because he had been sweating so badly, and so they gave him some fluid back, and that helped extremely. They also wanted to kind of rule out feed intolerance, and so they put him back on regular breast milk, so he's not fortified right now, and he seems to be tolerating that really well, which again seems like it's definitely more withdrawals than anything else, but they just kind of peeled back anything that could possibly be agitating him, because he was very agitated for a very long time. But he also is still having some issues with his sleep apnea, and so he will desat during the night. Granted, he recovers pretty quickly, which is a good thing, but it seems like we're going to be heading toward, at night, having him have higher flow, and then during the day having lower flow. So like today he was on 1 liter of air, and then this evening, like right now, he's on 3 liters. And so probably what we'll be looking at as he continues this, until we can get the sedation down even more, to a point where he's not having the apnea anymore. And then also they will be doing much slower weans going forward. He had done the equivalent of about 2 weeks worth of weans in 3 days. So it's one of the reasons why the specifically on the methadone, the Ativan was about a week's worth. But he had done a large amount of weans in a very short amount of time, and so for him, his body was just kind of like, hey, I need my drugs. So they made a new schedule today, and it will be quite a bit slower. And so he appreciates the slow, steady steps rather than the hurry up ones and then taking a day or 2 off to reset. And then we all appreciate that because it's safer for his heart. But that's all that happened with Jon David today. And Hunter had himself a fun day at Miss Anna's, as well as loving Marvel like his daddy. And so he thought he was the Hulk tonight, taking his shirt off. And so I'll be really happy to see him again. It's been a while since I've been able to actually see him in person. Should be able to see him this weekend. But if y'all would pray for these 3 things: 1, that Jon David will tolerate his weans as we move forward, specifically that he'll tolerate these smaller weans and won't have any of these like really big episodes like he had today. 2, that you'll pray for all those who've lost loved ones, especially those who've lost children. And then 3, if you'll pray for all the kids and families who are battling congenital heart defects, because again, this is not an easy road for anybody. And even once you kind of have whatever your intervention is, whether that be cath or surgery, then excuse me, then you still have this portion of it of having to recover from it, especially if you are there doing any period of time, having to recover from the sedation and going through essentially a withdrawal period. So again, if you would keep everybody in your prayers. And again, this does not just affect us here in North Carolina or in the United States, it's around the world. And I cannot tell you how much it's meant to me to have people from outside of the U.S. and from around the world who have been able to find Jon David and have children with similar diagnoses, and that this has been able to help them, which is something that I was really hoping that this would do when I started it. So really hoping and praying that everybody who is battling this comes out with desired results and that all of the interventions go smoothly. But that's all I got for today. Hope y'all have a good night. God bless, and y'all continue to choose hope daily. And Jon David, tell everybody bye-bye.